This year, I took on freelance beta reading to help myself pay for the future release of my work in progress. And to be honest, when I first started, I had no idea what to expect. I checked out a ton of videos on YouTube and I really could not find that many on being a professional beta reader, so I thought, in the spirit of transparency, I would talk about my experience so far. If you're interested in beta reading professionally, or you're just curious what I've been doing to raise money to publish my book, this is the video for you. Now, if you're more looking for tips on how to beta read, I actually covered that on a previous video. That's going to be linked at the end of this one, so be sure to check that out. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my content. I was checking the analytics the other day, and I was genuinely stunned to see what percentage of you who watch these videos have not yet subscribed, so be sure to do that if you haven't already. And now let's talk about what it's like to be a professional beta reader. First things first, being completely honest here, it's not always fun. Getting paid to beta read sounds awesome on the surface, and yes, it is definitely a more enjoyable way to earn money, but it's not the same as reading on your own time. That's something I think is really important that people understand. For one, when you're beta reading, you're reading with a much more critical eye than you would be when you're just reading a story that you're enjoying and you're just fully immersed in it. I find this form of critically reading something to be a lot more taxing, at least for me. I'm regularly taking notes or making comments rather than snuggling up in bed and just enjoying the story. Another thing you have to keep in mind when you're beta reading is the manuscripts you're reading are not polished. They're not finished works. Sometimes they are more complete than others, but in general, these are manuscripts that need work, and this can make it a bit more difficult to read them. And to be fair, that makes a ton of sense. The whole point of a beta reader is to make those suggestions so that the author can improve their book before they actually go ahead and publish it. I actually recommend that people go through the beta reading process before they even hire an editor. And as a result, yeah, I'm working with some pretty rough projects, and that's perfectly fine. But it does make it a bit more difficult than when it comes to just reading a story that I would read on my own time for fun. Of course, you're still reading, but it's not the same as kicking back and reading your favorite author's work, and I think some people do expect it to feel like that, and it's just not the case. In fact, I've actually found recently, with all the time and effort I've been spending beta reading, I've really had less time to actually pick books that I really want to read, and I've definitely fallen behind on my TBR list. It also takes a lot of time to beta read a book. It can be a really big time commitment, and especially considering the initial rates you have to charge to get your service going, which I am going to talk about in just a bit, it can make it real difficult to make the money even seem worth it. I'll also note here, if you're a person who gets burnt out reading sometimes, reading on a deadline will contribute to that burnout significantly. Now, at this point, if you're still interested in becoming a professional beta reader, that's awesome. I hope I didn't sound too negative before. Again, this is something that I do. It's something that I really enjoy, but it's also not for everyone, and I just want people to understand what it entails to beta read professionally. It's a lot of work. It can be very difficult. I also think it can be really rewarding, and we're going to talk about in this next section what's one of the things I've really taken away with value when it comes to beta reading. If you're a writer like me, which I am going to assume you are if you are a subscriber of this channel, you are going to learn so much about writing by beta reading. I can't even begin to talk about how much I've learned about writing from being a beta reader. In fact, I think I'm going to do a video on that in the near future because I think this is something I definitely do want to talk more about. Now, let me quickly take a step back and say you don't have to be a writer to be a beta reader. In fact, sometimes readers can actually make for better beta readers because they're not trying to inject their own ideas into a story, which writers do have a habit of doing. It's something I definitely try not to do when it comes to my beta reading. Now, in my service, I actually do offer structural feedback, but there is a line there where you really want to focus on making sure you're helping get the author's ideas out and you're not injecting any of your own. That is not the point of beta reading at all. Now, as a writer, if you can control that, well, sense of control that you typically have over a writing project, as I said before, there is so much you can learn from beta reading. In general, there is so much you can learn from reading, but when you're reading with that more critical eye that beta reading requires, you will notice so many things and be able to incorporate it into your own writing. There have been so many times now that I have beta read for an author written some notes about things I did not like about the manuscript, and then I turned back around to work on my own manuscript, and I've noticed those same things are also in my own writing. The amazing part too was not only did I notice these flaws in my writing, having taken the time to discuss these issues with another author, I felt like I had a better understanding on how to solve these issues. I'm finding now with my own manuscript that I'm not just finding bad writing, but I'm also understanding why it's bad and how to make it good again. The other thing that I think gets lost a little bit is beta reading is not just about criticizing another manuscript. It's also about highlighting what you thought the author did really well. And by noticing what I think different manuscripts do well with that critical lens, it's really helped me try to amplify the parts of my manuscript that I think I'm doing well, and also try to incorporate new things that I like that I see in other people's writing that's not necessarily in my own. This is stuff that you can do when it comes to reading any book, but that critical lens that you have when you're a beta reader just really adds another level to this. And also, considering that you're working with books that, let's face it, they're going to be more flawed than the most popular published books out there, it's also easier to find both those issues and also the highlights in those books, which I think is a real valuable experience, especially if you're a newer author like me. This experience has been so valuable in terms of actually improving as an author. Also, and I mean this in a positive way and not a complete asshole way, seeing other manuscripts that are not really polished really helps make you feel better about your own writing, which you're constantly looking at in its raw state. Realistically, you really shouldn't be comparing your work to the work of others, but let's face it, we all do it. And I think it's really unhealthy when you're comparing your book to just these complete manuscripts that are also super famous, which I know we've all done. This helps give some perspective in what an unpolished draft looks like, and I think that is also a really valuable experience to get to work with some unpolished work and really understand that, hey, it's not all going to be perfect in the beginning. Now we're going to shift back to the negative a little bit, and this is probably the part of the video that you came to see, where we talk about how much money there is to be made when it comes to beta reading. And let's just start here before I go into my own figures and say, making money as a beta reader is very difficult. Let's be real, I've said it on the channel before, if you are looking to get rich, the novel space is not the right space to be in. With that being said, let's talk about how much money I've made beta reading, and keep in mind when we talk about these figures, my goal as a beta reader has never been to support myself full-time beta reading. I love beta reading, but I think doing it to the point where I was making a full-time income on it would just be so draining in terms of my love for reading. My whole goal as a beta reader is to do this part-time to raise money to publish my book. Realistically, the amount of money I've kind of floated around needing to get this done, at least at the bare minimum level that I will be satisfied with, is $5,000. I know that sounds like a lot, but there is a lot to pay for when it comes to editors, covers, and also having a little money to start off with marketing, because while I love the idea of marketing for free on my own platforms like Instagram, this YouTube channel, TikTok, I also do want to have kind of a more structured paid marketing campaign, and beta reading is going to be a huge way in how I pay for that without really making it feel too painful in terms of my pocket, and also just the fact I could not really afford it if it was not for doing this work. In the 6 months that I've been doing this, I've made $2,500, and that's not too bad for a side gig, especially when you consider my goal to raise $5,000 for my first book, and considering at this point, and I will do an update in the near future on where I am at with that book, but considering that I am about 6-7 months away from needing to spend that money to publish that book, I am right on track with that goal, which is great. But keep in mind, it has been absolutely brutal getting there. When you first start out on a freelancing website, getting your first order is insanely difficult. I use Fiverr, so I can't really speak for the others, but I'd assume it's pretty similar. To start off, you need to put a lot of work into the look of your gig, making it look professional, really tweaking the way you word it so that it attracts as many people as possible. And then even then, to get your first order, especially when you don't have any reviews, you're going to have to make your prices as low as you possibly can and just hope to attract somebody who is willing to take a chance on you. And keep in mind, there are always going to be other people keeping their prices similarly low, trying to accomplish the same goal. It is super competitive. It's not easy. That's really the best way I can put it. It's a lot of work. Then when you finally do get a customer, you got to put all this work in to make sure you get a good review. And keep in mind, you set that price as low as it possibly can be, so it feels like you're not even getting anything out of it, except of course the experience of beta reading, which I don't want to say is nothing, but still, it's tough. I'm now a level 2 on Fiverr, which makes it so much easier to get clients because I've built up a decent amount of 5-star reviews. And on top of that, now that I have that level 2 status, my account is more reputable. And the website is also starting to push me out organically more now, but it was really tough to get there. And I do want to keep in mind at this point and clarify that it was likely a lot easier for me to hit that level 2 than it would be for someone like you if you don't have the type of platforms that I have on Instagram, on YouTube, which while I don't think I got a ton of business from those platforms, I do believe my first few customers I did get to take me seriously were people who already knew me. In particular, I think the video I made on how to beta read a novel got a lot of attention. I think I got several clients from that, and that's a luxury that you may not have. And even with this platform, in the first few months that I was doing this, I was very lucky to get 1 or 2 orders. It's only been relatively recently where I have actually found myself getting orders more consistently. Finally, after putting the work in, I'm now in a spot where I'm pretty much getting an order every single week, which is perfect because it keeps me working on beta reading consistently, while also not being too much where I can't actually focus my time on working on my own novel. If it actually got any better than this, I would actually have to start adjusting things. I wouldn't want to be taking on too many beta reading clients because, again, the whole goal of all of this is to publish my own novel. If I don't have the time to work on my novel, this whole thing falls apart. Now, Fiverr does have this program where you can market your services on their site. And if you're new getting started, this is definitely something that is interesting. I actually tried it out a little later on, so I don't really know how it works for people who are just getting started. And it was interesting. On one hand, I found myself getting more customers, but the rate that Fiverr cut out of my earnings was so much, especially considering that Fiverr already automatically takes out 20% of any price you make, which is something you have to keep in mind. When you set your price at $100, Fiverr is taking 20 of those dollars, so really you're making 80. It's, as a result, difficult to make pricing that is both fair for you to earn the proper amount of money for your services and for your customers not to be overcharged. It is a tough balance. The service where you could market with them in addition, it was helpful in getting people to see my gig, but it just wasn't worth it in terms of the amount of money I ended up making. So I stopped doing that, and I've still been getting those customers pretty consistently. That's something you might want to consider if you're starting out and you can't get a single order, but just keep in mind, it is going to be rough to make money when you are also losing money marketing on the site in addition to giving up 20% of your earnings. Now, I actually haven't decided if I want to continue beta reading long term, and by that I mean if I want to continue doing this after I raise the money to publish my first novel. As of right now, I am enjoying beta reading, but I can see it as something that does burn me out in the future, and especially if I want to eventually transition into becoming a full-time author. I know I'm nowhere even near having that conversation, but what I'm trying to say is I don't know if this is going to be something that I just do as a part-time thing now and then let it go in the future, or if I do continue to do this long-term. One thing I do know, though, is if I do decide to continue beta reading long-term, I eventually am going to make a portion of my writing website to facilitate beta reading directly. That way I don't have to go through sites like Fiverr. I understand the value, and there is a ton of value of having the marketplace there for you, but that 20% really is rough when you're trying to make money as a beta reader. And in the future, considering I do have that platform, which I am so grateful for having, I know that most authors do not have anything close to the platform I have, and I'm going to try to make some more videos in the future in how to build up your author platform. But having that, I just think it might make more sense in the future to do directly through my website. Right now, that obviously isn't going to work because if you've checked, my website is completely down. It broke, and I did not fix it because I thought it would be smart to save money hosting my website on my own mini computer. That has not worked so well. But that's getting off track. That's just something I have been thinking about and something you are going to have to factor in when it comes to beta reading professionally. And it's just like what platform you use. I don't know the exact rates of the other platforms other than Fiverr, but every freelance site is taking a significant chunk out of that price that you set for your gig. Even now, as a level 2 seller, I've tried to time how long it takes me to beta read and write a report for clients, and I've found pretty consistently that I am earning less per order than I would on a minimum wage position. Keep in mind, I do live in New York City, so depending on where you live, that math might be drastically different. So with all that being considered, you're probably wondering, why am I still doing this, aside from the fact that I cannot find a full-time career for my life? The job hunt has been terrible. I'm actually going to do a writing/vlog challenge later this week where I try to write as many cover letters as I possibly can in a day. It sounds like it'd be fun, but for now, let's focus on why I'm doing this. And the reason for that is, it's rewarding. Beyond the money I get professionally beta reading and the lessons I learn about the writing craft, there is something so rewarding about beta reading for someone else. Knowing you're helping contribute to someone writing the best manuscript they possibly can is a very good feeling. You are helping somebody accomplish their goal as an author. I had one client send me an updated ending to their book after I gave feedback talking about some things that disappointed me, and I was so amazed by the changes they made, and it really gave me a great feeling. It feels really good to help a writer take a step towards publishing their book, and getting paid to do it is just a bonus. A bonus that will in turn help me publish my own book. I've been totally honest in this video. Working your way up to making money beta reading is a complete hassle. But even if you don't want to do it professionally, there is so much reward to beta reading for another author. While I personally beta read to help raise money to publish my book, there are plenty of people out there who beta read for the love of it. In fact, I've beta read for a couple friends, free of charge of course, in exchange for them beta reading my own book. If you're a freelance beta reader, I'd love to know about your experience in the comments. Perhaps you have some tips for me to improve, or maybe you're struggling and there's something particular that you think I can help you with. Be sure to let me know about it. Also, if you're considering doing this and you have some questions, do not hesitate to ask. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like if you found it helpful, or I guess a dislike if you didn't like the video. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the support. Good luck on your writing journey, or I guess in this case, your beta reading journey.